All right, hi everybody. We are live. I am Coach Dennis Stoica with Modern Air Warriors. Welcome back for another amazing podcast. Hey, we are always bringing on like-minded people with regards to reality-based self-defense, functional fitness, grappling, striking, fitness, nutrition, and I wanted to make sure that we start bringing on some doctors as well. And there's no better person to actually bring on my podcast here, our podcast, Modern Warriors podcast, none other than Dr. Rand McClain, America's favorite longevity doctor. So we've got a lot to talk about. We really want to promote Dr. McClain, his business, and his brand new book, which just came out not just last maybe a month or so ago, right? So Cheating Death, amazing book, right? So the new science of living longer and better, 100%, no doubt about it. So hey, through nutrition and wellness, have been ingrained in Dr. Rand McClain's since childhood. His journey to become a leader in alternative and progressive medical treatments has been anything but orthodox. So long story about his life, from lots of injuries and overcoming those things. From being the youngest senior account manager in Deloitte's history to his stint as a professional boxer in Argentina to being accepted to medical school at the age of 37 after being repeatedly told it was impossible, Dr. Rand has never been a fan of the status quo. Dr. Rand's patients, many of which are A-list celebrities, being out in California, and world-class athletes, come to his practice, regenerative and sports medicine, in search of innovative treatments he specializes in. From the latest in stem cells and hormone therapies to IV drips that reduce trauma and anxiety to human performance health programs and futuristic longevity treatments, Dr. Rand believes that your past health mistakes don't define your future. So just a couple things, I'll name just a couple, but a lot of hot topics that are in the book, things that Dr. Rand does, right, in the business. The truth about steroid stigma, right, impacting people over 30. Stem cell debate, amazing conversation in the book with regards to stem cells, how umbilical cord infused therapies can help extend life and repair injuries while getting you back in the game. Menopause versus menopause, right? Do women truly have it worse than men? And how do you take control of your hormones? High performance sports, what works and what doesn't work? We can go on and on. How far would you go to get rid of your anxiety, depression, trauma issues? It's all in your head, or can you fix it yourself? So unbelievable amounts. I could go on topics here, and we're going to go do that some in our conversation here today. But just the last couple things. Dr. Rand earned his medical degree at Western University, did his residency at USC's Keck School of Medicine. He is a master of acupuncture and Western medicine, advocate for sustainable living, he's a huge cyclist these days, right? For quite a while, swimmer, triathlete, participated in professional kickboxing matches, and earned his doctorate juggling 3 jobs and fatherhood, 3 children. Reserve officer for the Manzanita Police Force. So unbelievable too, right? With doing all that you do, and me being in law enforcement and the military too, a career in it. So thank you. Prostate cancer survivor. Starred in several international action films, 2 times U.S. Olympic water polo team member, and co-owner of El Forno restaurant as well. So, hey, a lot of, you have any input on the menu there?
So, yeah, actually, fortunately I do. Yeah, but it's all good to start with. One quick correction.
Yeah, sorry.
I was more of, I never professionally boxed, only kickboxed. And I was part of the Olympic Festival team, which is our off-year national team, if you will. I'm not sure if they left a word out there or not, but just, to be on the technically correct side. But thank you for listing all those things. I didn't know people knew that much about me. That's an awful lot.
How about that? Yeah. So, hey, we bring on amazing people, right? But, you have this, one of the things of my coaching, Dr. Rand, is that we have our life to live, right? And so it might seem like, wow, that's a lot, right? Or that's amazing stuff. But if we're out there doing, giving our 1% better every day in every way, and we continue to knock the dominoes down, this is what happens in our life when we have a passion and we have purpose and we have principles towards what you're doing in your life. So anything else to add? If not, I'm going to ask you a little bit deeper dive into that kind of question too.
Nothing else to add, please. Go ahead.
Good to go. All right. So in addition to bio, right, who is Dr. Rand? What is your why? and I refer to the why as purpose, passion, and principles.
Purpose, passion, and principle. Well, uh, I just want to get the most juice for the squeeze out of life. As they say, grab it by the beans. There's all kinds of expressions. Carpe diem is one of my favorite
Yep.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you believe there's some more after this or not, it really shouldn't matter to you, because make the most of what we got here. That's really my motto. For good or for bad, I really just want to make the most of the time left. Don't look back, really look forward, and try and stay as healthy as possible. It comes back to, if you really get down to it, no one wants to live longer if they're going to live without good health. And
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of people out there, because I hear them daily saying, if I have to trade, I'll trade time off the back end for quality of life. And that's what that's my passion, pursuing that. And in doing so, why not share it with as many people as possible, right? It is a great thing, my job, because in sharing what I've learned, again, quite selfishly, because I want to
For
enjoy it
yourself.
myself.
For yourself.
It's a great boon to be able to share it with others and watch what happens. It's a lot like training. I was a personal trainer before they called it personal training, right? Since I'm 16 years old. And when you find somebody who really wants to get bigger, stronger, faster, whatever it might be, and they've got all this energy and intent, but they're doing the wrong things, it is such a joy to just go, hey, here's how we get things done, and then watch them take off.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's why I have a great job. And yeah, man, that's it in a nutshell.
So I know one of the things I'll throw in here too, right, is that healthcare, fitness, it's a very personal thing. So it's not necessarily an exact science, right? It's about also, how do you feel? Is it working for you? It might not work for someone else, but works for you too, right? And so very individualized. And that's one of the things that I got out of you on one of the first times that I ever spoke with you. So everyone's treated individually, and that makes you feel good as a person as well. And you're doing that exactly yourself, and you're working on reaching as many people as you can, right? And look, we'll jump into the next one, right? So tell us about the bestseller, right? So Cheating Death, a macro view, not like that every chapter necessarily, but what is it all about? If for someone right now, cheat, oh my God, what does that mean? So, go ahead and put it in context for everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously we're not, it's an attention grabber, because no one's going to cheat death.
Yep.
But we can definitely push it back and fight off the disease process. So again, we're enjoying life
Mhm.
until the last moment. We used to call it squaring the curve. You keep chugging along like you did close to the age of 20, 30 years old. And then if you're lucky, somewhere in your hundreds, you die in your sleep, so that you're
Mhm.
kicking butt until the very end. The purpose of the book, the content is, well, in keeping, what you were just saying, there are some general rules, but it's also very individualized, as you said. And until we get to that Star Trekian machine where, Bones will wave it over you and go, okay, we know everything there is to know about you, it's going to take another pair of eyeballs. And that's really, there's an expression in medicine, the doctor who treats himself treats a fool. You need another pair of eyes that's not biased, right? I think it's essential. A lot of professional athletes have done and still do their own training and focus on what they think is best for them. But I think you're better served by having another pair of eyes that's educated. And this is to provide that, to let people know, first of all, what opportunities we have out there to maximize health, to increase health span, as we call it, which is a combination of
Mhm.
health and longevity. And the purpose of the book is to, not only as a broad stroke, like you suggest, let people know the various alternatives like stem cell treatments, gene editing,
Mhm.
some do-it-yourself stuff you can do at home with 60 pounds of ice in a bathtub,
Yeah.
and then some action items too, as to how you can employ some of these things, like, for example, peptides. You mentioned steroids, the testosterone replacement therapy, and people get that confused. When you say steroids, I'm not even sure what you're talking about, because both can be very helpful, whether they be the naturally occurring steroids like testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, or um, well, they're both synthesized in this case when we're talking about replacement, but or the anabolic steroids, which a lot of people confused between the two, which can be very useful for example, 80-year-olds that are frail and risk death from falling, which is a underestimated stat, by the way, because I think it's number 4 on the list. But if you think about it, it really is closer to number 2, because while you don't get you don't necessarily die from the fall, oftentimes people that fall at that age die from something hospital acquired, like pneumonia or just not moving. Yeah.
Sure. I tell everyone, even on my martial arts, it's not if, but when. Everyone will have like a significant fall in their life at some point. So falling off the motorcycle once, right? So whatever it might be for somebody, right? So it's likely going to happen to all of us at some point in life, right? Too. So thank you so much. Hey, so specifically, here's one I'm going to have you toot your own horn a little bit, and just it's more of like a personal thing, like how you feel, right? So specifically, what is it like to be a pioneer in your field, right? Now being able to share the best drugs, supplements, treatment methods, and devices, approaches backed by extensive research, constant research in the book too, that obviously you keep up on and you're sharing with everyone as well as your own work with your own patients, right? Not just research that you're looking at, but as well as work with your own patients. That you even have some of those stories in your book.
Well, as I said earlier, I have a great job, and I think most doctors that have their heart in the right place will admit that, we're all looking for that pat on the back. I mean, that's how we're motivated. I think a good doctor is anyway. You like helping people and getting the, hey, thanks, Rand. I feel great. I haven't felt like this in 40 years, and thank you very much. And that makes your day. I mean, again, any regular person, whatever you want to define that as, who wouldn't like that? So that's part of it. But also, there's a psychologist, I can't remember his name now, starts with an M, but the 5 layers of what every human needs. At the top of it is what we call self-actualization, becoming the best you can be, and that's really a joy for me. Meaning to be able to do what I really enjoy and have an interest in, being able to get all that research, as you said, both from the deep dives on the internet that we can do now to, just taking notes of the patient. I mean, it's a dream come true, and make a living at that, right? Being able to feed my family and, do what I think I'm destined to do. I think I've always had a knack for it, and that's not a conceited, whatever self-absorbed thing. I mean, we all have something that, if we're lucky enough, we find out during our lifetime, hey, I'm actually, kind of, I not only caught into that, but I think that might be one of my strengths. And with all due humility, I think medicine, I have a knack for, and then being able to just dive in there and give it all I can is a dream come true.
So that's when I have clients that I'm coaching, and we talk about the why and their purpose, passion, and principles, right? It may or may not be your career or your job, right? But what is the most amazing is when you're able to turn your purpose, passion, and principles into something that is your career, your job, and you can make a living off of it. That's the ultimate thing for anybody. All right.
It's giving me goosebumps as you say it. Yeah,
absolutely. So, next question coming up. But what I love about the book too, that the first chapter, right? So we start talking about what people don't think, I think, when we think about disease. So when we think about disease, we're thinking about diabetes, hypertension, cancer, right? But that's because our body is no longer functioning well, which comes back to genes, right? And that chapter, I don't think too many people, Dr. Rand, are thinking like that today. Right. And I know more and more work is being done in that field, right? Constantly. So the book itself, though, right? I just had to throw that out there because it's like the beginning of the book. And I don't think people in general, we go right to the disease, right? And we're always trying to mask or work on that too. But the field of medicine, right, is more and more, we're understanding this and how it has an effect on creating the disease as we get older. Can you comment on that a little bit, and maybe that's going in life?
Well, yeah, I mean, we find that the genes are like the cards you're dealt, and then the way you play your cards, the activities of daily living, what we call, what you do in terms of sleep, nutrition, exercise, and maintaining stress, keeping that at bay, and the human part of maintaining bonds with other humans, et cetera. That becomes a very important part of where you end up. I mean, you can get dealt a great hand, but if you play it poorly, you're screwed, and vice versa. So that's what we're getting more and more knowledgeable about, is that it's not just the genes, it's also what we call the epigenome. And we can see now through testing like DNA methylation and telomere length where you stand in life, wherever you are, in terms of not just your genes, but how you've played them. And the cool thing is, and I think this might be to your point, we can manipulate that. We're not stuck with what has happened to date, like you would be, unfortunately, if God forbid you had an accident and had a leg removed. We haven't really. I mean, we have some prostheses, obviously, that can be helpful, but with a lot of these other disease processes, we can be heading in that direction, like toward type 2 diabetes, metabolic dysfunction. We can reverse it, identify it, reverse it with a lot of different techniques, and get back on track. And it's as though it never happened.
Never happened. So cheating death is all about rethinking aging and how lifespan, or health span, I should say, right? Longevity and vitality has become the new normal. Cheating death highlights many concepts to not just live longer, but live better. It may not be the true fountain of youth, right? But living longer while feeling and looking better has never been more achievable. The book definitely points out that. You just said it yourself, right? We're able to attack things. We don't have to live what the hand I would been dealt with is what you refer to it as, right? So, but instead of it controlling us, aging can become something that we can control, especially when we're working with doctors and having community practice, and we're working out. We have trainers and buddies, all that good stuff, right? So getting enough sleep. So let's talk about a few of the concepts for the listeners today to break down some of what's in your book, Cheating Death, and what you do at Regenerative Sports Medicine. So I've highlighted a few here. We'll take a little bit to, I'm just going to throw one or two out, and we can start chatting about it. So improving health span with intentional nutrition and dietary supplements. So vitamin D, vitamin Bs, right, for stress, anxiety. So how important is it that someone gets blood work done to know where we're at, right? Every 6 months or a year, and work with someone like you or a provider to kind of attack those things again. Better stress, better anxiety, to reduce anxiety, get better sleep, all those things that can happen.
Well, working with a provider provides what I referred to earlier, having a second pair of eyes. It also can provide a source of information, which sometimes you can get, a lot of that from a book. That was not an intentional plug for the book, but I'm just saying, you can do a deep dive on the internet, but to get feedback, I think is very important, because without that, you can set sail toward a goal. How do you know if you're on track? And that's where the assays come in. That's where the professional evaluation can be of assistance. Doesn't mean you have to have it. I just think that anything worth doing is worth doing right. Why not?
Yeah. So I mean, I learned stuff already myself, right? Medication that's in your book, metformin, I think, if I'm saying it correctly, right?
Metformin?
Metformin for cancer treatment, not like the cure, but to take with it, right? So that the average person probably would never know that it's something that can be taken, right, to assist, along with other treatments and surgery or whatever else someone's going to need for cancer. But crazy important for nutrition and dietary supplements to help, whether that's, again, sleep, diabetes, etc. Anything else to add? If not, we'll move on.
Well, I mean, that's a huge area of the top three, right? Where nutrition and supplements is included in that, where it's important to build your base. When it comes to metformin, just to clarify, for the most part, it's a great, I have to say it's an adjunct, because if you say it's a cancer treatment, you're going to get in trouble at this stage. But it's definitely a great adjunct. And it makes sense if you think about it just briefly, like lowering sugars, whether it's viruses, bacteria, fungi, or cancer, they love sugar. Lowering your blood sugar, but with a few exceptions, I have to say that the current research shows that metformin's probably great in an adjunct treatment for most cancer, but there's some where it actually may further it. So again, now we go back to maybe it is a good idea to check with your provider before just jumping into that. And I actually have to, because metformin is an RX, so you'd have to get it from a physician anyway.
Gotcha. All right. Cool. Let's talk about the value of sleep for longevity. Look, I don't get enough myself. It's a struggle. Most people I work with, right? Moms and dads that are out there too. I tell people in the gym, hey, if you want to exercise, sometimes you're going to have to get up an hour, of of your sleep for your exercise, right? To try to live closer, do all these things. But let's talk about the value of sleep for longevity.
It is almost endless, the list that of things that are benefited by sleep, and of course the things that are, detrimentally affected by a lack thereof. However, what you just mentioned is probably the best combo for those that I don't point a finger at, because as I tell patients all the time, if I were to point my finger, look at the three that are pointing back at me. Look, I was a single dad. I went through medical school, the whole nine yards. I mean, and so I get it. You do what you have to do, but exercise is a great equalizer. If you're going to lose sleep for whatever reason, man, your best defense, other than trying to grab that sleep back, if you can, within that short window in which they say you can make up for it, it's not going to be a week later. But exercise is key. It helps fight one of the major problems with not getting enough sleep, which is how it affects your insulin sensitivity, therefore your metabolic function. And so, yeah, that was a nice combination. But if you want to really get motivated, there's a couple doctors, Dr. Bruce and Dr. Walker out there. Dr. Bruce is considered the sleep doctor. And Dr. Walker, we stole him from the UK. He's overhead in the departments at Berkeley, but both have written many books on it. And it doesn't take long in the reading from either of those authors to realize, oh my goodness, it's not just what grandma and great grandma said, and you kind of have to trust it. And it's part of the reason I wrote the book, is because those three things, nutrition, exercise, and sleep, people kind of go, ho hum, what's the latest and greatest I can take? No, back up, because the pills are just the fine tuning. The basics are still the bedrock from which you have to start. But when you start looking into the science of it, for a lot of us, that gives you the motivation, and you go, oh, okay, well, maybe I should back up and focus on that. And again, that's part of the purpose of the book, is to explain that in concrete terms, so people could go, oh my goodness, I opened my eyes up and realized how important this is. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a coach, when we do our integrated warrior training, we create a plan. We work on body, being, balance, and business, for large, like pillars that we work on. And in the body, we talk about physical, these things: the nutrition, the supplements, the sleep, the working out, et cetera. Right. And there's so much that people can do, whether it's, be off your phone an hour before, blue light, make sure we are exercising, to be tired, not having caffeine or things before. So a lot of things like that. The sleep. I'll have to have the sleep doctor on in another podcast. So it'd be great to have him on and have just that specific conversation as well. All right. So we mentioned exercise, big into the diet, big into the nutrition, big into the supplements, huge into the exercise myself. So why may it be the single most important cheat?
It activates a lot of the systems that we already have in place, innate systems that help regenerate the body in many ways. I'm not just talking about, oh, well, I stimulated muscle growth. I'm not talking about necessarily just that, but I'm talking about at a cellular level where, for example, everyone's into NAD these days, right? If you haven't heard of the NAD supplementation, then you're probably not into nutrition that much. Well, the best source of NAD? Exercise. If you flash back to your high school physiology, you remember that electron transport, cleaving the hydrogen from NADH to NAD is a big part of exercise, the energy output. So that's the best way to do it. And part of that provides the necessary molecule for the sirtuin genes. And this is maybe someone who's not, maybe someone hadn't read about this as much, because this is more of the anti-aging area, not just exercise and nutrition, but that helps with cellular cleanup. We know that it can affect mTOR and autophagy, and these are things that I do my best to explain in not so nerd-like terms in the book. These are things where I liken it to a kitchen where the cells are working 24/7. And if you've got a kitchen that's throwing, slinging out a bunch of food, especially someone as active as you are, think of it that way. Well, if I don't take time to clean up the kitchen, whether it's the pans, the tabletops, the recipe book even, then next day, the cook is looking at the recipe book and there's a bunch of tomato sauce on there, and you go, wait a minute, is that 3 ounces or 8 ounces? The recipe gets screwed up. okay, very possibly. You're misfolding proteins more specifically, and you've got cellular dysfunction. The cell starts to senesce. There's cellular breakdown, dysfunction, and that's the one of the 9 hallmarks of aging. One of the the methods by which we age, I think, is a very strong one. And think of the cookbook, for example, as the DNA. That's the analogy there. Once that gets screwed up, it goes south from there fairly quickly. So exercise, that's just one way that you're resetting things at night. Now, of course, if you are not getting the sleep, that exercise can't activate as much of that, because it all occurs while we're
Sleeping.
It's teed up by the exercise. So you can see how it all works together. But to answer your question, sorry, long-windedly, exercise, that's just one area where exercise does the trick. The other way, of course, people are with metabolic dysfunction have typically high blood sugars. Muscle, very simply, muscle is a sugar sink, right? It's a place for that sugar to go. I see people, just by starting TRT, drop their hemoglobin A1C, which is an average of your sugars over roughly 3 months. Your blood sugars, I'm talking about. You'll drop it by roughly 0.3% just by adding that. And the theory is that, because testosterone leverages muscle mass, just by doing the same things you've been doing, you bring that back up.
Which I believe is significant to have a less chance of getting cancer the more we lower our A1C. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and since you mentioned it, I'll go there. Right. So, cheating hormonal decline through bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Right. More and more people, younger even, doing this. They don't have to be 80 years old necessarily. Right. But it's allowing us to continue to function, be strong. What else can you add? And something usually I know.
Well, in terms of younger and younger, unfortunately, it's because stress adds to it. By definition. Paraandropause or perimenopause, or perimenopause occurs at age 35. That number heads to the left on the graph because of stress. And there are a lot of stressors out there. Ask any young person in the 21st century, or ask any person, like your parents' age, and even my dad admits, yeah, you guys have it a little tougher because stress is everywhere. That diminishes the effectiveness, the production of the hormonal system. And so, yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of people turning to TRT because that's the only choice at a younger age. But speaking of age, to age myself and maybe leave some people clueless as to what I might be talking about. There, the old Saturday Night Live ad for Shimmer. It's a floor wax. No, it's a dessert topping. Testosterone can be looked at that way by everything you read, but it really does have a lot of effects on the body. And so, in keeping with the idea that the hip bone is connected to the knee bone, connected to the ankle bone, aside from the obvious ones like correcting a decrease in energy, a decrease in libido, a decrease in general well-being, and an ability to modulate your body composition, amongst just a few, it does help pretty much everything. I mean, just a better mood, for example, can help so many other things. We've proven more and more with better science, not just woo-woo medicine, that just your attitude can add. I mean, there's a Yale study in 2002 about your attitude toward aging can extend your life by over 7 years.
They're crazy.
I mean, yeah,
crazy,
and it's just
right?
changing this one
Mindset.
thing. Yeah,
Mindset. All right, a couple more questions. We're getting very close to the time here, so I want to talk about. What can people do that are listening with regards to early detection and diagnosis of disease, being able to help themselves, and then kind of as a follow up to that, like what's the future of medicine looking like in order to be able to live even longer and better? So what can you tell our listeners that they should be doing for early detection of diseases, getting diagnosed with certain things if they do or don't know, about something, and then what does the future look like? And that might be about, maybe DNA methylation, maybe that's gene editing, things of that nature. When we talk about the future, I don't know. Go ahead.
Screening is really important. If you catch it early, you got a much better chance of surviving it. Honestly, there's very little excuse for dying of breast cancer, colon cancer, or prostate cancer these days, even heart disease, because we can catch it so early.
Mm-hmm.
And this is statistically based at roughly 50 years old, where we expect you to find higher yield on the test because we expect to find some things going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
A barnacle can still form on the hull of a ship, even if it's not sitting at dock. It's active all the time. It's just part of being alive. But a multi-parametric MRI for the prostate for men at 50, it's a gold standard for a screening tool. A coronary CT angiogram for the heart, starting before that with a bilateral carotid Doppler ultrasound to gauge what's going on there, and reflexing to that coronary CT angiogram, which is again the gold standard, to detect plaque in the arteries if we find something on the ultrasound. Obviously, a mammogram. You can also use MRI for breast cancer to determine what you see at an age 50 or earlier if it's in your genes, if you have a first degree relative. That's for all these cancers. What I leave, a colon cancer, again, by age 50, you got to have the colonoscopy or something close to it. And then you add to that, aside from the imaging that I just referenced, all those are images. We can use liquid biopsies to our advantage now with things like Grail's Galleri. And that's just one of many liquid biopsies. And we've got a lot of them coming down the pike, including C2N's version of a liquid biopsy to detect early signs of Alzheimer's. So making use of those, whether it's just a general, and I'm a fan of this, even though they would say in medicine, you don't go looking for trouble necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You follow leads, okay, but you don't treat it like a car where you're just kind of doing an overhaul. I tend to disagree with that to some degree, but the liquid biopsy field is going to yield a lot of opportunity for us to detect things early, including cancers, as well as predispositions for other things. So being aware of those, again, the purpose of the book, and making use of those where appropriate is key.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Very good. All right. Last question. We're out of time. Who has or does inspire Dr. Rand?
Oh, man. Yeah. There are so many people from whom I draw inspiration. I mean, we started talking about a guy I found out about just last week, Ross Edgley, this guy who's just redefined the definition of beast or animal. And I love, just meeting those people, whether it's directly or through books and just, the ability to share information over the internet. But I have so many people who have inspired me over the years, starting with, of course, my dad, who's one of the best critical thinkers I've ever met, as well as just a great, kind human being. My mom, who is the sweetest person I've ever known. And I say this, to people, oh, yeah, of course he's going to talk about his parents. But a lot of people don't have that advantage. And I'm quite aware that I'm blessed to have had such great parents. And then, my old boxing coach, Bojack, Sidney Walker, lightweight champ back in the 40s, one of the toughest human beings I've ever met. And a guy, I mean, we were talking about training earlier. Yeah. I would have easily, when you're young, especially, you think, okay, if I throw one more punch, my heart's going to explode. I'm going to die. But I would not have embarrassed myself or him by quitting on a guy like that. When you meet a guy that inspires you like that, I mean, he's got to be an inspiration. But I've met, honestly, I would never be able to name them all. I take inspiration from a lot of professors I've had and kind people along the way that remind you that, hey, it's not so bad, this life we've been given. Take advantage of it. Again, carpe diem. So the list would be endless. I know that's not the answer you wanted, but
no, but it's a good, it's a great answer. So, hey, Dr. Rand, thank you so much for being here. We greatly appreciate it. Everyone that's listening, right? cheatingdeath.com. You can go there to see Dr. Rand and pick up a copy of the book. All right. And so order that today. You can go to drdrrandmcclain.com as well for that website. And of course, the business site, psrmed.com as well. He's on social media as well, Instagram, LinkedIn. I don't know if he replaces, I know Instagram and LinkedIn for sure. So
all the standards.
All the standards. So any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
Probably the best thing I could advise people on when it comes to their health anyway is be your best advocate of your own health. There's nobody going to care about you more than you do, in the sense that your body better than anybody else. And so get involved and don't be shy about pressing your physician or any health care practitioner about what you want.
That's an amazing end, I think, right? Because I think a lot of people that maybe do get disease, they go to the doctor, they don't ask enough questions. And I think there's a lot of people that are like maybe moms, or maybe it's just like, it could be a dad, whatever, but we're so busy either working for our employers or working for the family that we're not taking time to ourselves as well too. I think I see that all the time as a coach too. So, all right. Hey, Dr. Ren, I'm just going to ask you to hold for a little bit here. Thank you so much for being on, everybody. We'll see you at the next podcast. Thank you so much for being here. You know the drill, right? Until next time, train hard, train smart, train safe, train real, and train for life. We'll see you in the next podcast. Take care, everybody.